they want. I don't know that a Sam Darnold, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy trio even works for them the way they want to cut down their roster. I think it only works if Brock Purdy's out for the year. If Brock Purdy's not out for the year, it doesn't really work
I
because then
agree.
you have Brock and you have Sam. Okay, those are your two guys, and then you've got a third guy, and let's say that's Trey. And what you're going to make Trey Lance inactive all year, and he's just going to sit there. I don't think that is going to work. To me, that third guy only works if that third guy is a practice squad developmental, DTR. If it's Brock's your one and Sam's your two, and you have DTR sitting there, that does work because you can make him inactive. You can put him on the practice squad. You can protect him every week if you want to protect him. But that works. But I don't know that does Brock and Darnold and Trey work when the head coach has stated he may have go with two active quarterbacks on the roster. So I
No.
don't know. Right there, that already makes me think that they're not going to go with Trey. And then when you look at all the prospects that I think would be great fits for them at quarterback, and they're, by the way, looking and meeting with these players, they met with DTR, they went to the Stanford Pro Day, they're standing right there. If you told me, Jesse, that John Lynch really loves Tanner McKee, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I would not be surprised by that.
No.
If you told me they love Jake Hayner or Clayton Tune, I wouldn't be surprised by that. So they're well in position to land one of those players. The three that they have right now I don't know that there's a fit for them all three on the roster. And then Sam's the guy who just got there. So you think, even though he's kind of the low man on the pole, he probably has some job security because they actually just handpicked him like the other day. And then Brock, they just told us is their best quarterback and they're going with him. I mean, plus they've had several cryptic comments in the last couple weeks that make you think that it sounds like they're on the verge of trading Trey. And then I'm looking at the quarterback market and I'm thinking to myself, well, if I'm not in the top 10 picks, I probably can't get a top tier quarterback. And then who would I rather have if I have the 28th pick or 24th pick or 22nd pick and I'm one of these teams that doesn't have a quarterback? Would I rather have Hendon Hooker, who may not even play this year, or I'd rather have Trey Lance? I think I'd rather have Trey Lance. So I think it's reasonable to think that some team between 10 and 50 could say, hey, we'll give you a couple picks. Here, give us Trey Lance. We'd rather have Trey than Hendon Hooker. We'd rather have Trey than Tanner McKee or whoever the next quarterback on their board is. I don't know that Trey's better than all these guys in round one, but in my mind, he's better than a few of them, but he's definitely better than that next tier. And I think where he would go in this draft and what the Niners would take back for him, I think the Niners would probably take back, especially if they like Brock and believe in Darnold, they would probably take back a top 50 pick for Trey. I probably wouldn't. I would probably want more like a top 25 pick, but I think they might take a top 50 pick, and easily Trey is the best quarterback after the top four, and they're supposed to go in the top 7 or 8 picks. So, I mean, if you're 16, you're 18, you're Washington, you're one of these teams that doesn't have a quarterback, it sounds crazy to say Trey Lance would get a first-round pick, but who do you rather have? You want Hendon Hooker or you want Trey Lance? I'll take Trey Lance over Hendon Hooker. And I think other teams would too.
You might have to kick in like a third to kind of offset it or something like that. I don't necessarily disagree with a team being willing to trade for a Trey Lance, but your synopsis, which I agree with, of what happened with these owner meetings and what was said, is not one that breeds lifting the trade value of Trey Lance, in my opinion. I think you've plummeted the trade value. Any value that was there, you've basically just told the world, listen, I don't like Trey Lance that much. Like that's what
Who
I
did you
took
get?
out of that.
Where are you getting that from? Are you getting that from John or from Kyle?
From the whole situation. If you're willing to let him compete with Sam Darnold, This Sam Darnold, like this is the same quarterback who, I mean, this guy's a horrible decision maker. He has like 90 turnovers and 55 starts. Nobody wants Sam Darnold to potentially be their starter for any amount of time, if they're being honest. And you're willing to let that guy compete with a guy that you were willing to take over your organization a year ago. That tells me you're completely out on this guy potentially. Like that's the optics you're giving it. Whether that's what you mean it to mean or if that's what you actually think, that is the optics you are giving to me if I'm looking to trade for Trey Lance. That's what I believe. So you've already plummeted his trade value if I'm looking to buy Trey Lance. So what's the big deal if you wait a few more weeks? Because I agree with you. I do agree with you that this quarterback room doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'll also say this. I could see a scenario where they remember when they gave Nate Sudfeld $2.5 million last year guaranteed or whatever it was. We're like, oh, there's no way he doesn't make this team. Well, they draft Purdy round 7. He comes in, blows their socks off. All of a sudden they move Sudfeld because that's the only option you really had. Sam Darnold a year later is making
which
$1
is
million
hilarious that
more.
you're saying that, by the way, because literally there were more than one Niner content creator that when the question of the roster cut down was broached in the 72 hours before the decision, they were still using words like, well, obviously they're going with Nate Sudfeld.
Right.
I mean, because they've got $3 million invested in him, and that's why they're obviously going with Nate Sudfeld. And then a lot of people just kind of scrubbed those comments off, and I don't think, I think
Exactly.
suddenly it wasn't so obvious. So
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So imagine now. So now imagine that Brock Purdy isn't back till let's say week 3 or 4, something like that. Okay, they do draft a quarterback because they want to continue to draft a quarterback. They like this process of hey, every year we're going to draft one. Let's see if we can hit again. We'll continue to do this. So they draft a guy. Brock Purdy comes back. They know he's the starter. They did actually do a competition. They're like, Sam Darnold does actually suck. Turns out we can't fix him. He's just not very good. The inflation of, okay, so instead of $2.5 million or $3 million for Sudfeld, yeah, it's more money, but the salary cap's gone up. So really, we're talking about the same amount of money. I could see a scenario where it's like, yeah, Sam Darnold doesn't fit. We do like this rookie. We want to keep him. Trey Lance was good enough to be the second guy. Purdy's our starter. We'll try to trade Sam Darnold. Maybe there's a desperate team 4 weeks into the season that lost their quarterback that's willing to look. But if not, no big deal. We'll cut him. It's $3.5 million. I mean, whatever. We were willing to blow away $2.5 million last year. I could see that scenario too.
I mean, I'm just reading first of all, there's a couple people in the chat who are like, Krueg's got to be the number one hater of Trey.
Well, no, I'm going to give you, by the way, I'm going to give you a chance to talk through that because you get this a lot, by the way.
Seriously,
you get this a lot.
If there's anything that's bullshit, it's that. I mean, come on.
Right.
I hate to say that, but that's such BS. If you Google Pat McAfee, Larry Krueger, Pat McAfee, you're going to find a video of Pat McAfee reading on his show a quote from me saying that the 49ers are going with Trey Lance, like well before the draft, like maybe 10 days to 2 weeks before the draft. I was a Trey advocate. I was the guy saying they should go with Trey. My opinion of Trey has never changed. Not once, not since the beginning to today. And I'm not saying that I would trade Trey. I'm saying they're going to trade Trey. Do you see the difference?
Very
I
want
to trade Trey versus they want to trade Trey. I'm telling you what I think they want. I'm not telling you what I want. I'm telling you what I think they're going to do. So that's the difference.